There's just 2 weeks to go until we'll be loading the vans for the Great Electric Train Show here at Pete Waterman's workshop, with making tracks 1, 2 and 3, which will be joined together for the first time at the 2023 Great Electric Train Show on October the 14th and 15th. That's at the Marshall Arena in Milton Keynes. Today we're here in the workshop to see the latest progress and see what they're doing to actually join those layouts together.
So obviously what the challenge was to fit the three together. Luckily we'd not planned it, because we never obviously planned to go to 156 feet, but I had used each board to line up correctly, if you get what I mean. So this board here is the Milton Keynes Making Tracks 3. So we come up here, and this is obviously I've had to do no work on this at all, but of course this has now got to fit to Making Tracks 2, and that's where your change comes. So this of course was originally the end of Making Tracks 2 Rugby. So that end, if you look at this end, is Kilsby Tunnel. So what I've done is we've reduced this piece, which was the tunnel, because this was all the end board. We've taken it back by half, dropped it down, and we've now put another tunnel entrance here, which effectively is Stowe Tunnel. It lines up, as you can see. We're still making this was the Farmer's Bridge, we're still making that at the moment. So all this is new. So I've had to make all this. Now the great news for me was, because Kilsby is, the M45 is over Kilsby's Tunnel. So that meant that this board, I could actually do a lot less work by putting in the M45, which is absolutely right where it should be. What's missing is the great big tower here, which is the opening into for the smoke and for the way they got into Kilsby Tunnel. And there's a smaller one here. So obviously we've got to model the motorway with all the barriers and the lines, but in a way that's quite good, because you've got to remember we only had 5 weeks from the time we came back to the cathedral till Milton Keynes. So as I say, this is all new, totally new, but it fitted straight onto Making Tracks 2, because I obviously did that before I went, knowing that at some point I'd want to join these up. So I had these boards up when we started Making Tracks 3. I had them up to make sure that they lined up in the right direction. So, and we've just had to do a bit of cutting and shoving about a bit of the weekend, because as always they didn't quite line up. So what we had to do was we've had to go back and look really at Making Tracks 1, which was a bigger problem, because Making Tracks 1 was, and I can say this openly, was a lash up, because we started it before Making Tracks COVID, and by COVID what we changed our mind, because we had a year in between when we started and when we actually started to make it for the cathedral. So originally, because it was an anniversary for the cathedral because of Thomas Brassey, and they wanted brassy structures, I suddenly realised that wasn't going to work for the public. So we then built the way, which is where we started with the West Coast Main Line, but we had half of the layout was West Coast and half was Cefn Viaduct in Wales. Well, we've done away with Cefn Viaduct. In fact, it's in the bottom. So when we came to this piece, which was the bit, this is North Church Tunnel, and is the bit before Tring. I realised that looking at making tracks 2 and 3, this didn't scenically work in the same way that the other layouts did. So as you can see, we've had to rethink this through. So what we've done, whole new foliage, lots more bushes, more grass on the tracks, more grass work interior. I'm going to change, which I haven't built yet, which we're working on. The signalling was here. That's going to be a gantry instead of just single signals. And you can see we're putting more grass on. If you remember, there's 2 houses on the top of North Church Tunnel. We're building a new bungalow on there, so we've got a building plot, and then that brings us to this part of the layout, which again there'll be more. There's more bushes, more grass, a completely different scenery. And what that led me to really think about was the last part of this, which is the board before we Tring itself. I wasn't happy with it. It was too flat. So I've actually chopped it right down, created a new back scene with different clouds that match, but brought it down so that when it actually fits to Watford, it's a more natural piece than it was before. This, again, because like everything, you learn more and more and more about different materials when you're modelling. I found that the way I'd modelled this wasn't good enough for me. So we're still working on this board, but and there's a gantry going in here. That's why that tapes across there. I put a signal gantry in. We've learnt so much since making tracks 1, which is really interesting. Not just on catenary, but the scenic side. Getting them to match up is a lot easier when you look at what you didn't quite get right or what wasn't good enough, So now there's no big job. It's just all little small jobs. So therefore, sometimes you come back, you get a little bit disheartened because where before when you were doing a whole board, you walked in, there's nothing there, suddenly there's a railway there, you get excited and it gives you impetus to walk forward. So if we come on, you can see the barn's in a mess because we've got bits of railway all over the place. Phil and the boys here are rewiring all the boards because that was a big job. 1 and 2 had to be rewired because we use a different system. You can see here we've actually got making tracks 2 up, and what we've had to do on here, we're adding a little bit more scenery, but it has to be all rewired. But more important, all the signals have to be redone because the signalling system will be completely different on this now. So this is the one we've got up because it's easy to put up, and you can see. But you can see because of this piece which goes on the end there, you can see that they start to look the same, because that's important, making them, match, making them start to look the same. So that's where we are really. We're a little bit behind on the signals, I quickly hasten to add. We will get there, but it's a bit concerning. We will be bringing a surprise train set, and I don't mean train set as in this set, but a local, a set, one train, a brand new one, which we've not showed anybody yet. We're keeping for Milton Keynes to make something a little bit different, so people can see something brand new that we've not seen before. But that's it now. It's all down to 5 vans, 5 men, and 2 wagons. Yeah, we got 2 weeks and 2 days to the event. And the great thing is, as I think Phil said more than once, it'll either work or it won't. So, when we get in there on the Thursday, I think there's going to be a lot of holding our breath to make sure that it all fits together. Well, we know Making Tracks 3 works. You know, we know that works perfectly. We're pretty sure about Making Tracks 1 in that respect. Making Tracks 2, I should say. But Making Tracks 1, I mean, we haven't touched it for 3 years. Now, that's all rewired. This is Watford. This is the last board of that first layout being rewired. And I've done quite a lot of remodelling on this as well. So it wasn't a case of that we could just put 3 layouts together. I don't want anybody to get that impression. It was obvious when we accepted the challenge that we would have to do some remodelling, because 3 years is a long time in modelling, and materials change and other things change. But I'm convinced that it's like, so if you saw Making Tracks 1 or 2, they will look different. They won't look the same. So, well, I've seen it. Well, no, you haven't, because it's changed since you last saw it. Seeing full length trains go the whole length of I mean, that to me is when you suddenly got, because if you think about it, we're going to have two trains on each line at the same time. So it's not where, like, even at 64 feet where there's one train going past, you have to wait for the next one. This is, you will see one in front of the other one, so that you will be able to watch the signals change as the trains come up to them. And you know, that's what I enjoyed that at Milton Keynes tremendously, because it worked perfectly, particularly with the big freights. You know, when you got the 16, sleeper cars, it looks tremendous. You got your, 40 wagons on your vans, and now you've got your 11 car Pendolinos get lost. I mean, they're suddenly lost in the scenery. It's like the rail railway. It passes you, it's a dot in the distance. So at Milton Keynes, for me, the exciting thing will be to see one layout where trains, if you stand there, you're almost on the rail railway. The one concern, it's not a concern, but it's something we have to take into consideration, is these locos that we're using, and the particularly the Voyagers, the Pendolinos, they've now done an amazing amount of real miles over the 3 years, particularly the 9 car Pendolino and the 11 car Pendolino. 100 miles, Phil, did you say?
What, sorry?
The 9 car Pendolino must have done 100 miles by now.
Oh, 120, 130.
Real miles. Now we've changed the wheels because we've actually worn the plating off the wheels, and we put new wheels Hornby gave us on, but we haven't touched anything else. So here we are, where we've gone from 64 feet to 152 feet, and of course you've got that at the back as well. So we're not just adding the bit to the front, you're adding it to the back. So you're doubling effectively what they're running, and you're asking them to run for 2 days, for 10 hours a day. That's the one concern. I'm not a concern, but it's the one thought I've got to have in my mind, that how much will these engines or motors take? And this is the same for all, by the way. It's the same for the 66s, all of them. We're taking them to a whole different level. I mean, I've said this before, but if we can run these with certainty, then anybody who's a hobbyist don't have to worry about ever wearing these things out.
So we can't wait to see all 3 of the Making Tracks layouts joined together at the 2023 Great Electric Train Show on October the 14th and 15th at the Marshall Arena in Milton Keynes. You can see full event details at keymodelworld.com/Great Electric Train Show, including details of all 30 layouts, all 55 traders and the demonstrators that are attending the show. Plus, advance tickets are still on sale until October the 9th at 5 p.m, and they'll give you a saving over on-the-door prices, plus you'll get early entry from 9:30 a.m. on each day of the event. We hope you enjoyed this latest update, and we look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at the Great Electric Train Show on October the 14th, 15th.